One of the most important things as a real estate investor is our network, specifically real estate agents. Our next guest has a retail brokerage that sells around 200 to 250 houses per year and a fix and flip business that sells about 50 to 60 houses per year. Through that, he has learned the importance of utilizing real estate agents as a key part of his business. He's also built software that can kick out an unlimited amount of offers in just minutes. More offers means more deals. So this is a great episode that should help you understand the importance of building your network in order to make more offers. If you haven't already, be sure to grab your copy of my book on Amazon, More Leads, More Deals, More Profits.
Calling all real estate investors. Are you ready to get off the real estate income roller coaster and learn the proven lead generation strategies the experts are using to consistently generate profitable real estate deals? Then you're in the right place. This is More Leads, More Deals, More Profits with your host, Mark Lane. Let's get started.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Super excited for this episode. We've got Caleb Pearson on the show today, and he's going to be talking about running a business through a multifaceted lead generation approach. And he's got a couple unique strategies that most people don't use, but is working very well to his advantage. So really excited to go over that with him. Caleb, welcome to the show.
Mark, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Glad to have you here. So Caleb, I'm going to let you have the mic and just tell us a little bit about kind of who you are, how a little bit about how you got started. We don't want to go super deep into that, but we kind of want to know a little bit about who you are and your story. So take it away.
Okay. Yeah. Caleb Pearson out of Charleston, South Carolina. I started as a retail broker, and we built a retail team where we do about 200 to 250 sales a year on the brokerage side, with just a handful of agents. And then what we found was after about 10 years, we had a few investors that we were making a lot of money. And I realized I was sitting on the wrong side of the table. So we started buying our own houses and flipping them. Then I joined Collective Genius, that's where I met you a couple years back. And then we built a fix and flip arm to our retail brokerage. So we're doing about 50 to 75 fix and flips a year now.
How long did it take you to get up to that type of volume?
About 2 years.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of where we want it to be. We're not we haven't doubled down on marketing in the last couple of years or hired a bunch of acquisitions guys. It's just, we've got our core team of basically 3 people, and it runs and it's profitable enough to where it's manageable, and I enjoy it.
Yeah. And in my opinion, that's kind of like the perfect amount of volume. You go beyond that, you start to have to build a pretty significant team. So kind of that 40 to 60 deals per range. If you have good profitable deals, it can be a very nice business.
Manageable. So then at CG, I started looking around the room. I'm like, all right, who in this room has the best lifestyle and also has built the most substantial wealth? And it seemed to be like the commercial guys, the people that owned the mobile home parks, the RV parks, the apartment complexes. So we got into buying apartment complexes and mobile home parks about 6 or 7 years ago. So call it back in 2018-ish. And we bought a couple parks, couple apartment complexes. We probably own about 400 units. And that's kind of the 3 arms to our business. And the buy and hold stuff we use to offset our active income from the depreciation. So we have the active income from the retail side, and the fix and flip side, and then we use the buy and hold stuff to offset that income.
So we'll get into the lead generation side here in just a second, but there's a couple interesting topics I kind of want to break down just a little bit, if nothing else, from my own knowledge. How much of your, not necessarily like amount, but like a percentage of your income that would be taxable, how much are you writing off with your depreciation?
I mean, almost all of it.
Really? That's amazing.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people that think about rentals don't understand, whether it's single family, multifamily, whatever, they don't understand that that's a lot of where the power is. It's not really in cash flow, but it's in the depreciation, the principal pay down, the appreciation, like the part that you don't really see, like that's where the real wealth grows.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at a personal financial statement without the buy and hold stuff, we'd be nowhere near where we are right now. But the cool thing about it is, like, let's say you get rid of a $250,000 tax bill. Well, that's $250,000 that you didn't give to Uncle Sam that you can turn right around and use towards a down payment on a $1 million asset the next year. And I mean, when you do that year after year after year, you look up and you're like, dang, I own a bunch of stuff. But the key is still buy right, buying good locations. I've gotten my teeth kicked in a few times on some C-class apartments. Like, buy nice stuff, good locations, make sure they cash flow, and then make sure you're partnering with people that have a little bit of money in in their pockets and that are good, honest people. And it really is that simple.
Yeah. So I know personally, I've had a little bit of intimidation when jumping into bigger assets, commercial type stuff. Going from brokerage and flipping houses. What gave you the confidence to jump into that, and how did you go about it to where you made it happen relatively quickly?
I don't know if it was just being young and naive and eager.
Aggressive, anxious.
Yeah, I'd credit some of it to that. Um, and I had friends that owned a couple thousand doors, so buying a couple hundred didn't seem like that big of a deal or that big of a stretch. So I'd say hanging out with people that were doing things way bigger than I was helped. Um, and then just taking their advice and actually listening to them, because they definitely helped me shortcut our way to owning a better portfolio.
Okay. So let's jump into the brokerage side of your business. How do you feel like that helps you on the investment side?
I mean, I've probably been on 1,000 listing appointments in my career, sitting belly to belly with sellers that are just homeowners that want to put their house on the market. So there's not really many neighborhoods and streets in this town that I don't know anymore, just because I've gotten that many at bats. So I think as far as knowing values, and that's the biggest part of the investment game, is making sure that you know that you're accurate on your exit price.
Okay. So the brokerage side, was that, would you do that again? Would you build that up again if you're starting over?
That's a good question. If I already had a fix and flip business and I started out as an investor, I don't know that I'd go build a brokerage business, because that thing took me 10 years to really build out all the systems. And there's a lot more to it than the fix and flip arm of the business. And it's a lot harder to manage and maintain than the fix and flip investment side. So I wouldn't really advise. I get this question all the time from fix and flippers. Should I build the brokerage arm because we're missing out on this many sellers that won't sell for a fix and flip price? And I always tell them, no, you're better off just referring that business and taking some sort of referral. I mean, you can go get your license and take a referral fee, but I don't suggest really building out that whole business.
Yeah, I know some people here that they have a little bit of an investments going, but they have very heavy on the the brokerage and realtor side of things. And I think that from an investor standpoint, we see that as very high revenue, right? Doing a couple hundred house sales per year, and we see, oh shoot, that might be $100 million in sales. And so like we kind of think like massive amount of incoming revenue, but when you break it down and the expenses and the commission splits and all that, and if you're saying that the flipping side is more profitable than that, like that's really good information to absorb, to say, man, I don't know if that'd be worthwhile.
Yeah, and I don't even know if it's all about profitability. It's about your time and your stress and the energy involved. And when you're dealing with the emotional homeowner, it's way different than dealing with your own fix and flips. Like with your own fix and flips, you make quick decisions and you just go. With a homeowner, like, you're a therapist at the same time as a financial advisor, as an attorney, as a tax advisor. Like, these people need all these. It's a lot more hand holding than just fixing and flipping your own properties.
Yeah. And so,
and none of those legally, none of those professions legally, but those are
yeah,
kind of what the questions that you get brought to you.
Well, and one thing you've talked about is lifestyle, whereas some of the realtors I've talked to that do a significant amount of volume, it's like they never sleep. They're always tied to the phone. They always have to be answering to somebody. Whereas running the investment side of things, you can have a lot of time off and it doesn't really affect it all that much.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay. So let's start walking into kind of your lead generation strategies that you have going on. So I know we talked about that a little bit before the call. So it sounds like your top strategy is direct mail. Is that right?
Yeah, and most expensive.
And most expensive. Okay. How many pieces are you sending and how often are you sending?
We send about between 20 and 25,000 pieces a month.
Okay. And so that's probably costing you 10,000.
Yeah. I mean, that's just on the mail piece. But then for the data, by the time you put the data into it as well, more like 15 grand a month.
So I don't know anything about your market. What type of return are you seeing on that?
So that's a good question. I mean, usually we're getting about $3 to $4 back for every dollar that we spend.
Okay. 300 to 400%. Okay. All right. So direct mail. And so are you doing mainly just like one big blanket list, or do you have any smaller niche lists that you're attacking as well?
Yeah, I mean, we buy a couple lists from a couple different service providers around the country, and then I mean, we pull pre-foreclosures, divorces, our own little niche lists as well.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like those account for very much of your direct mail results, or is the bulk of it the big list?
The bulk of it's the big list.
Yeah. Same thing we see. Okay. So then the real estate agents, I know you mentioned you do really well with that. So that's something that I don't feel most people utilize very well. It's something like I call like that's a part of our Dream 100, right? If you have like 100 referral partners in the city that are referring you deals, real estate agents are going to be a huge part of that. So talk a little bit about that and how you've developed those contacts and how you get leads from them.
Yeah, I mean, we've had this brokerage team for like 14 years now and done high volume in the market and treated people right. So most of the agents know us and we've got a pretty good reputation in the market. And a lot of the market knows us as the real estate agent that's the investor. And there's only a few of us in town. So I get a lot of deals brought to us that way from just residential real estate agents that have problem properties and need somebody to come in and just fix it for the seller, stuff that they don't want to put on the MLS. We email blast the agents in the market about every 10 days as well. So we're really like staying top of mind between social media and email blast to the agents in the market.
So let's break those down because that's that. Then we get into the tangibles of how to do it. So the email blast, like what is that? Email blasting every agent in the city?
Yeah.
Walk us through that. What's that look like?
Yeah, so it's just a cadence of emails, and every email is different. Basically, some of them will be towards the end of the month saying, "Hey, we're sitting on some cash. We need to buy 2 houses before the end of the month. We've looked at everything on the MLS. What do you guys have?" What are some other ones that we've written? Hey guys, we need to buy something before the end of the year for tax purposes. What do you guys have? Thank you to all the agents in town that have sent us deals so far in the first half of the year. We love working with you guys. Just remember, we let you guys represent us when we buy any of the houses that you guys bring us, so you can potentially get both sides of a commission. I mean, there's a sequence of them.
Okay. So is there a certain way to get access to all those agents, or do you have access to that because you're a broker in the area?
So that's a good question. It's really hard to just buy an agent list or find an agent list that has accurate data. That kind of brings me to our next piece, how we work the agents is, so I told you I've been on about 1,000 listing appointments. Every time, let's say I went on 20 listing appointments a month. 2 or 3 of those sellers every month were super motivated and would take a discounted offer, quick cash, sell it as is and just be done with it. So I was sitting with a buddy one night and I was like, every house that's on the market, and let's call it 7,000 listings in the market, every one of those 7,000 sellers has raised their hand and said, yes, I do want to sell, but I don't know which one of those 7,000 are motivated. So like, how can we figure that out? Can we like backtrace? Can we stack data and try to figure out which ones of those are motivated? And he goes, well, why don't you just make an offer on every single one? And I'm thinking, well, that's a really good idea, but that would take so much time to sit down and handwrite or type and DocuSign 7,000 offers. So I talked to another one of my buddies who's a software developer, and he was like, dude, I can build that. So we built a software. It's called, if you go to zoomoffersnow.com, you can go in and click and offer X percentage on any house in the MLS that's active, and it'll auto-populate a contract, sign it for you, and send it to the listing agent. So basically, you're just casting a net over the whole market, getting an offer out to every listing agent in the market, and then fielding counter offers all day. You don't know which ones are going to come back good. And you get responses kind of like direct mail. Some of the agents are not the nicest, but it's just like when people call in off a direct mail piece, 8 out of 10 calls are the people aren't nice either. But we've picked up some really good deals with that software.
Okay. So it's interesting because so I had never done anything to that volume, but back in the days of the recession from 2010 up to 2014, 15, 16 probably, like we had built kind of our own system of making just bulk offers every day. So, I would, and of course I was going online, I'd go on realtor.com, I'd sort things, and I really didn't have that much time into it, but we were making 20, 25 offers per day, and we would get 3, 4, 5 deals per month doing that.
Yep.
So, this kind of shout out to the listeners of this type of thing works. And so especially to have a software that can do that, that's pretty amazing.
Dude, this thing would have been lethal back in 2010 through 2015.
Man. Yeah, that would have been crazy.
It's interesting too, because we see the success of our clients, and it's directly correlated with the inventory. So like if inventory is going up and the market slowing down, our users are getting high deal count, high deal volume. But it was like when the 2-3 years ago, when the inventory dropped to nothing, the software wasn't very productive or effective.
Yeah. I mean, same thing I experienced, just a different approach. But, I went from doing a lot of deals on the MLS to almost nothing for several years. Just market changed.
Yep.
But, again, looking at a software that can do that for you changes the game because, it just gives us our time back. So
yeah,
super cool. So
I mean, I'll give you an example. Our beach house that we have, we kind of bought on accident. We weren't planning on buying a beach house. It was listed at $890, and we offered like $650 on it on the MLS. It was never on our radar, but with the software, like in your scenario, you would have never offered on this because it was that far off. But if it was 2 clicks for you to put an offer in that listing agent's email and it takes you 5 seconds, you'd take your shot. So we did. And we ended up buying the house for like $655, $660, oceanfront in Charleston. I mean, it's probably $1.5 million house now. But the seller inherited it from their parents. The house was in disrepair. They didn't want to mess with it, and they saw quick cash, and they were like, "Yep, let's roll."
Well, I think and if that's getting back to your point earlier, that's the thing that we don't know. Sometimes there's no way to read motivation through a screen. Right. Like we go to, we look at listings, we can see, sometimes you can see distress in there. You can see the smoke filled walls. You can see the old curtains. You can see distressed furniture, like boxes on the, in the hallway, that type of stuff. You can see those types of distress, but you can't see the intangible distress of inheritance and probate and like that kind of stuff where like there might be a lot of people out there that would look at an offer, but people just can't tell that there's motivation there, so they never make it.
That's exactly right. Some of our best deals, you brought up inheritance. It's when there's like 6 family members splitting it up 6 ways. When you drop the sales price by $100,000 and split 6 ways, it doesn't hurt everybody as bad. So and when 4 out of 6 are like, take it, I want my money now, they end up pushing it through. Like those have been our best deals, but you can't see that through a screen. That was a good analogy. That's really well put.
Yeah, good. Okay, all right. So Zoom offers now. That's where people can go to check that out.
Yep.
Okay. So next, let's get into the texting. Because I know, when we met at CG, texting was doing really well for you, and you're talking like it was a huge part of your business. 1, are you still doing it? 2, what kind of pushback are you getting, and how are you abiding and or getting around any of the type of restrictions that are out there now?
Yeah, I mean, we're using a company called Launch Control, and it's texting is not nearly as effective as it was. It still definitely generates deals for us on an annual basis, and it's the ROI is good because it's not expensive like direct mail or PPC or billboards or radio. Um, but it's just not as effective. There's no new guidelines, and most of the software make you put an opt-out feature in the text, so it looks more spammy. Um, the lists you can't text but one time now, where we used to just hammer lists over and over and over, and you're getting deals on like the fifth or sixth text message. But now you can only hit them once, so we're not able to recycle the lists as many times through text.
Yeah, I
But I
wonder.
mean, it
There's
works.
somebody here that does it, and I mean, there used to be more, but there's now somebody here that's doing it, and I get their texts over and over again for the same property. So I wonder if they're just using a different provider that doesn't have those restrictions in place that they probably should have, but they just don't.
It's probably a compliance thing though. Like they'll what I'm seeing is those companies come into business, everybody runs to them, and then all of a sudden they vanish overnight. So I mean, when you're sending out hundreds of thousands of text messages from your platform a week or a month, somebody's going to end up shutting you down if you're not doing it in compliance.
Okay. So texting, it's still working, getting a good ROI because it's a cheap option. So I think that's worth looking at too. Is some lead generation strategies work really well, but they are also expensive to get into, or they're expensive to do at enough volume. Whereas some of these options, such as texting, is you can pick up deals, and might not be a ton, but you'll pick some up because it's you can do it because it's cheap. But then also, as much as anything, the real estate agents. So that's for the most part a free source, right? Like you build a network, you build those referral partners, and I mean that's a free option. So
Yeah.
we love those types of deals because there's nothing into them other than time.
Yeah. Agree.
Do you have? So I've heard of people before that have like reward type systems put in place for real estate agents. Do you have anything like that to where when they refer enough to you, they get any type of gift, like anything like that?
So we usually just let them represent us on the buy side. And then we do put them in our CRM and check back in with them and just tell them, hey, thanks for sending us that deal a few months ago. We just want to check back in and see if you got anything else, see how you're doing.
And that's probably what they
We
really
don't do
want
like,
anyway. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. That's probably what they really want anyway, is the commission, right? Like,
yeah. And dude, they will, if they represent you, they will take their client and throw them under a bus and back right over them to make the deal work if they're getting both sides of the commission. And I mean, that's on them. That's not on me as a licensed agent. Like they're the licensed agent representing the client.
they get excited about that double commission though.
100%. Because the average agent in across the country only sells like 8 homes a year. So most of these guys are not the high volume agents that are bringing us deals. These are like the onesie twosie agents, and they've got something. And if they can make double size of a commission, that's a big number for them.
That's a really good point that I want to stop on for a second. And I would agree with that 100%, that almost every referral I've gotten from a realtor has been from a realtor that does not do high volume.
Yeah.
The ones that do high volume, they keep it for themselves. They've already got their investors, they take it to, that type of thing. It's the agents that are only doing a handful of deals a year. They see you as an active investor, and then they want that double commission. So when they can make that happen, and especially when you can buy and perform, you're going to start to get those leads from them every single time they come across one.
Yeah. It's funny because when we were high volume, and I'll never forget, I took a deal to this guy. It was an expired listing and it was listed at 200. And I said, well, I've got a guy in town that'll buy it and can close in like 5 days. He goes, what will he offer? So I called him and he goes, tell him I'll pay 100 for it. And I'm thinking, there's no way in hell this guy takes it. So I called the guy immediately and said, hey, my guy can pay 100. And he goes, all right, well, can he really close in 5 days? If he can, then it's his. So I made a $3,000 commission on it, and then he ended up making like a $50,000 or $60,000 wholesale fee. And I'm like, hell no, this isn't happening again. So like the high volume smart agents realize like, okay, they'll just do it for themselves. They're not going to do it. They're not going to kick them to you for very long.
Yeah. 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 And they, the high volume agents, they have their network. They know who has cash. They know how to get funding if if necessary and stuff. So I still get I get referrals from probably one of the best agents in town, and I wonder, why doesn't he do these himself? Either maybe he's got enough properties, he doesn't need to anymore. I don't really know why. Maybe he feels like there's conflict there, but I get those leads from him, and I'm always surprised. But back to your point, it almost always comes from lesser performing agents.
Yeah.
So okay, cool.
And they love you. God, they love you when they can get both sides.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I get those, it could be Facebook messages, text messages, where they like anytime they come across something, it could be in a Facebook group, it could be off market, whatever, they just kick them over and I quickly qualify it, see if it works or not. So, and I think for the listeners, that's really important to understand that, in most metro markets, it's not like there's a dozen realtors out there. I mean, there's thousands. And so like this is a massive, massive opportunity when you really take the time to build it out. Massive opportunity. Mm-hmm. So Caleb, where are you kind of going now? I know you mentioned more so the kind of heading into the commercial side. Is that kind of the long-term plan for you to go deeper there?
I mean, we've kind of built the retail side and the fix and flip division where they're sizes that I like. They generate the income that's sustainable, and it's a good balance of income and lifestyle to where I don't really want to grow either of them a whole lot. So then it's just constantly like, can we add enough commercial assets every year to offset the incomes of those? And I mean, I just think if we continue to plot along with those three consistent, boring plays, that in about 5 to 10 years, we'll be where we want to be, and then we'll figure it out.
When you're still a young guy, so with all that compounding that'll take place from those investments, I mean, it'll become a monster, So it's sometimes it's just about finding what works and continuing to do it over a significant number of years, and it really, really adds up.
Yeah, and try not to get out and chase too many rabbits. I mean, I'm famous for that too, trying to build bunch of other businesses and take other risk that may not be necessary.
Yeah. Well, I like a lot of what you've talked about though, and it's because you haven't necessarily tried, well, maybe you have tried, but you've at least found your sweet spot that you like. And I think that there's a lot to be said for that, rather than constantly chasing more and maybe having less joy and fulfillment and time and all that kind of stuff. To have all those good pieces of life that you have and to be making the amount of income that you want to make, like that's what everybody wants. So yeah. I think it's commendable that you found your spot and that you're not constantly pushing for more just for the sake of more.
Yeah. And I mean, and I found myself when I was really young and just getting started, everybody wants to make $5-10 million a year. Like that's the goal or more. But then you realize once you hit a certain number, your lifestyle doesn't change a whole lot. So why create all that extra headache and stress?
You can't spend it. You can't do anything with it. Like, that's one thing my mentor told me a long time ago. He's talking about, getting passive income up to $10,000 a month. He's like, when you get to the point where your house is paid off, you don't have any debt. He's like, you can't spend $10,000 a month. So he's like, what do you need to make more than that for? I mean, and granted, there's nothing wrong with making more than that, especially from a passive income. But his point was to not be constantly focused on just always pushing the goalposts forward, because
there's not much. I've got a question for you, and I ask people all the time, what do you think that number is on an annual basis for you to make to where your lifestyle is paid for and you're comfortable and you can do kind of whatever you want to do, other than once you start flying private, that really bumps the number up. But like, what's the number?
Well, so I've found that number. So mine is $30,000 a month passively, like $30,000 pure net that comes from investments.
So close to
so not income, not gross income generated from earning, but purely from investments. And I'm not there yet, so I'm not saying I am. But I found that number. So when I travel, I like to travel really, really well. Like we just went on vacation, stay at the Ritz, like fly first class, all that stuff, eat the best food. And I really don't spend more than about $1,000 a day on a trip. That's about the max it is. And sometimes just a touch more. But so that means I would literally have to be traveling 24/7, 365 to outspend that $30,000 a month. And I'll never do that. I don't want to be gone that much. So, with really like all personal debt paid off, $30,000 a month is more than I can even spend. So to me, that's the number. So I can't, if I can't outspend it, then that's a good number.
Everybody that I ask that question says anywhere between 350,000 a year and 600 grand. And very few people have said $1 million. And those guys are usually the ones that are flying private or staying at super expensive places when they're going on vacation, spending 40 to 60 grand a vacation. But that
you're just intentionally spending it, which is
right. That 350 to 600 number seems to be kind of everybody's number.
Yeah. And there's a massive difference between that being an income generating business versus that being a cash flow net business, right? Like, you're generating $500,000 to $1 million gross from a business. That could mean you're netting 100 to 200, right? Like that, there might not be much net coming off that, but then you're talking, 3 to 500 coming out of investments. That's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
So like that's the side. And that's a lot of what we do this for is, to generate leads, to do deals, to make profits, to then turn into, cash producing assets. Like that's the end game.
Because starting at the starting line every first of every month for the rest of your life is not the goal.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you witnessed this, but I know for me personally, and I've talked about this before on other people's podcasts, where, like I was into this for probably like year, I don't know, like 6, 7, 8, something like that, had already made a couple $1 million probably, and was at a point where I had nothing to show for it. I hadn't figured out assets yet. So I was just all about generating income, and I was making several $100,000 a year. I was still in my 30s, and I thought I had it made. And then as I got closer and I'm up to like close to 40, I'm like, where did this all go? Like,
you're like, I'm not worth shit.
I made all this money. And so now, as things have transitioned, much more conscious of taxes and much more focused on wealth. I understand money differently. And now you look at the financial statement each month, and it's like, then and now it's starting to get really fun to watch that thing grow.
Yeah.
And it's just a completely different shift in strategy and mindset and all that. When you become wealth focused as opposed to income focused, everything starts to change.
Well, it's interesting. You brought up personal financial statement. I've got a guy on my team, and he's been with me for about almost 10 years now. And same story, like made a high income, like you were talking about, and just didn't really have a whole lot to necessarily show for it. And we've just started meeting a couple months back and doing a personal financial statement every month. And I'm like, okay, this is the number that we're watching, and this is the number that we're trying to grow. So like it's starting to click with him now. Like, okay, if I do this, that number is going to go down. But if I do this and it pays me, that number goes up. And like, that's what you watch and focus on grows.
And it's until a person starts tracking that, they don't get it. So when I coach with anybody, like that's one of the first things I tell them to do is like, you need to start tracking your net worth every single month. Like I do it on the last Friday of every single month. And, now because I have it all recorded, I mean, it's just going in, all it is editing a couple boxes now.
Yeah.
But I get to see it, and then I get to see it month over month. I get to see it year over year and say, man, like my wealth is really growing. Like this is really cool to see. But without tracking, it's just like our marketing. If we're not tracking it, how can we know how we're performing? It's really just a guess. So super, super good thing to track. So, well, awesome. So Caleb, what can you leave, any information you can leave our listeners with of, one, how can they get in touch with you if they want to? How can they learn more about you, and any advice that you can leave them with as well?
Yeah. I mean, if you want to reach out to me, just email me at calebcpteam@gmail.com. Are you going to have show notes where you can throw that in? Okay. So yeah, throw those in the show notes. You can email me, and I usually get back with you within 24 hours. I mean, my best piece of advice is just find something that works, stick to it, stay disciplined, find somebody that's always one or two levels ahead of you, and ask them for advice and do exactly what they did to get to where they're at. But don't just quit if it doesn't work in 3 or 4 days. Like stick to a consistent good habits that people have that are in better situations or that are in situations where you want to be in the future. So find a good mentor, find a good mastermind, and always be seeking an education.
Yeah. A lot of good nuggets there. Find a mentor, get in groups, get with people that are ahead of you, that know more than you. Don't be the smartest person in the room. All great stuff. Awesome. Well, Caleb, thanks for being on the show. Much appreciated, and lots of good information here. So I think everybody will really enjoy it.
Cool. Mark, thanks for having me.
All right, you bet. Thank you.
This episode is over, but we're not done here. For tons more actionable advice, be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Ready to get help from Mark directly? Visit marklaneeducation.com to schedule a consultation and kickstart your lead generation strategies right away. We'll see you next time on More Leads, More Deals, More Profits with Mark Lane.